Hey everybody, what's up? Let me check my angle here, see why I'm to be centered. Alright. Okay. You can see the title below. It pretty much states how how the Mecha Sally Death Egg Mark II World Tour 2 arc could have gone, or could have been done, or could have been done. Now, I'm not talking storyline. Now, I'm not just talking the story, but I'm talking more like how could it have been done issue-wise. Now, there's a lot of people, believe it or not, here on the YC, on the YT, I should say, and even at the forums, the message boards like Bumble King, Sega forums, the Sonic Stadium, the Saturday Morning Sonics, the TSSZ, the Blue Blur forums, the Fans United for Saturday AM forums. They're all saying similar things. Even at DeviantArt, Furfinian, you name it. They're all saying the same thing. And they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying on one side, they're all saying that this thing's gone on too long and it needs to finally end. Well, on the other hand, you got fans that I like to compare as the internet, I guess you could say the Sonic fan base version of the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. See, the IWC, for some of you that don't know, is an internet wrestling community that thrives on independent wrestling, mostly. And I'm always glad when a major independent star, either they made their name for themselves in Combat Zone Wrestling, Ring of Honor Wrestling, in Japan, doesn't matter. The IWC is so invested in that star that when that star gets signed by the WWE, the IWC is enthralled. They're happy. And as soon as that internet darling, or darlings if you will, get called up to the main roster, as crazy as this may sound, and I think it's the first time I've ever said this in a video, and I apologize if it offends anybody, but as crazy as it sounds, it's like a full, sometimes depending on who it is or who the individual or individuals are, it's like a full blast orgasm. I'm not lying. It's like a full blast orgasm. And again, I apologize for anybody that I might offend, but that's what it is when any internet darling, as they call it, of the IWCs gets signed and called up to the main roster of WWE. Because in their sense, it's like finally we have somebody or a group of somebodies that's going to finally bring the WWE back to professional wrestling. Enough of all this other crap that we have to deal with, back to professional wrestling. Now, the strange comparison to that is you have one side, like I said, all these places that I mentioned, all these message boards and everything. You have one side that's so happy that this story arc has been going on for a long time that they feel that this is exactly how it should have been done. This is exactly what needs to be done, not just in the Sonic comic, but in any comics. That's why you have that one side that's all for it. That's like the IWC of the Sonic franchise. But then you have the fans. But then you have this side that's not like the IWC. It's mostly like, look, we understand. It's like they look at that other side. They look at that other side. They say, yeah, we understand you're happy. We get that this is your kind of thing. We understand and respect the fact that you're happy. You're getting a long story arc. But you know what? You could still get it, but it could be done this way as well. And the way I'm talking about is you could spread it to different comics. I mean, if you have spin-off comics or any kind of related comic to the main comic, I mean, let's take a look at DC, if you will. DC has Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Green Arrow and Flash and all of them. And if they have some kind of major event some major event happening in that main character's comic that it has to spend multi-issues. Do they center it in one main issue or one main comic? No. If they got spin-off comics where the character appears in as well, then they use those comics to continue it so it doesn't expand over over such a long period of time. In other words, they don't just say, okay, we're going to just limit it. Like, let's say with Superman. Let's take Doomsday, for example, the classic Doomsday arc. Did they limit it to the main Superman comic? To the main Superman comic? No. They expanded it over multi-Superman titles. Even Justice League titles, believe it or not. They expanded on it. They even did the same with Batman, and like I said, Green Arrow, Wonder Woman. They didn't just remain, in the main character's comic, its, prime comic. They expanded the story to be continued and featured in other issues. They expanded on it and featured it to be in other issues to continue on so it wouldn't drag out for so long. And that's exactly what a lot of people, even myself, will look at and say to those people, hey, we appreciate the story as well. We know we appreciate the fact that this is your kind of thing, that you like one issue, you like you like the story arc flowing through one issue, and that's all. We get that, but you got to understand from our standpoint, there are some of us that don't like it and would rather have it expanded to where it can have the same, same length of time, if you will, but on a shorter basis. In other words, expand it to other comics. And again, DC is not the only example. You take a look at Marvel. Spider-Man, the main Spider-Man, the main Amazing Spider-Man comic, which has ended with 700, I guess, I don't know. But the main Spider-Man comic, when it would have a multi-issue story, did they stay just in Amazing Spider-Man? No. They expanded it to go to Spider-Man Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Man this, Spider-Man that. Heck, sometimes they would even take it to the Avengers. I mean, the list goes on and on. And speaking of Marvel story arcs, let's take a look at Civil War. It's one of the most controversial ones out there. Did it just stay in its own in its own little comic? No. Civil War expanded through Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, Avengers, Black Widow, Fantastic Four, Captain America. Every title you could think of Marvel-wise in a major play, or Incredible Hulk, major title-wise, all continued the Civil War arc, They all continued it in some way. They didn't just, so that it wasn't just limited to one story. It wasn't just limited to one story. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just limited to that one story. So, but that's the thing. That's the thing. It wasn't just limited to one issue, one main comic. These stories of DC and Marvel got expanded on. And, Archie Comics has done this as well, believe it or not. They've done this as well. Anytime Archie himself had a major story, and even though it may not have been like on the level of Sonic or anything, but if he had a major story arc, did they just leave it in the main Archie comic? No. They took it and they expanded on it in Betty and Veronica, Jughead, and various other titles that are Archie related, Sabrina, Cherry Blossom, you name it. They expanded it into those issues. And then, speaking of Sabrina, she did a one-shot crossover with Sonic, right? And did they limit it to the super special? Did they limit it to just Sabrina? No. They combined the two different issues. So Archie Comics knows how to do this. Heck, you want to talk about most recent? You want to talk about most recent? Let's take a look at the Iron Dominion 2 years back. The Iron Dominion arc in the main comic went for a year. But it was longer than that. You see, it was longer because you add in Journey to the East, the story arc that was in Sonic Universe, and that was 14 issues worth of a story arc, of one main story arc. Now, could they have decided, okay, we'll put Journey to the East as a backstory in the main comics, or we'll do Journey to the East, we'll kind of take a break from the main Iron Dominion portion and go to Journey of the East in the main comic? No. They continued the story arc in universe with Journey to the East. And then you take a look at the upcoming crossover with Mega Man, and yeah, you could probably think, oh, well, they could just limit it to just Universe and Mega Man, or the main Sonic comic and the Mega Man comic, or just the Mega Man comic, or just the Sonic comic, or just the Universe comic. No! They're expanding on it because it deals with two iconic characters who have their own comics as well, but they're expanding on it so it's not just limited to one story, to one comic. In a sense, basically, it's a 12-part story, a year-long story that's going to be completed, if you will, within a year, within next summer's time frame. In other words, from the end of April to the end of August, you're essentially looking at a year-long story arc, completed within the time frame of April, May, June, July, August, essentially less than half a year. 5 months on top. So mainly 4 months if you want to look at it in another sense. But essentially that is what you're looking at. Essentially, you're looking at a year-long story condensed through the expansion of all these other issues with Mega Man and Sonic Universe, expanded into different comics so it doesn't run over a year. And that's the truth. Now, what does it have to do with the Mecha Sally Death Egg Mark II World Tour 2 arc? What does that have to do with that? Well, it's real simple. It could have been given the same treatment between Universe and the main comic. It's true. You could have taken Universe. You could have taken Universe and said, you know what? We're going to make this our comic. Not our comic, but you could have took Universe and said, okay, we're going to make this our continuation of the arc. Yeah, it probably would be about a year or so because of all the things you have to deal with. But it would have been different. It would have helped. You wouldn't be waiting so long. And essentially, if you want to take a look at it from a cash standpoint, it would get people to buy, if not subscribe, to the Universe comic. So that way, Archie would be gaining their money, Sega would be getting their money, and they would essentially be getting people to read, buy, and subscribe the Universe spinoff. And I think that's what could have helped out a lot. Let me check my time here. But that could have helped out a lot.